Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Now, today we have a very special guest, and I was super excited to chat with her in the green room today. Her name is Lani Kane-Hanan. She is the CEO of the One Company, which is the Open Exchange Network. So, welcome, Lani. It is great to actually have this time to spend with you. I know that we've been chatting over the last several months, and you were just a change maker. You are clearly trailblazing for women in the C-suite and now as leading the Open Exchange Network. So welcome to the Woman of Inspiration podcast.
Thank you very much, Monica. I'm very excited to be here. I'm glad that we could take the time to be together, and I really appreciated getting to know you.
Well, I'm looking forward to many more conversations, and your career path is super inspiring. And, in the room when we talked about, you transferring from a very large hospitality driven business with the Marriott into the Open Exchange Network, which was a startup company just out of the pandemic. So maybe you can tell our listeners and viewers about the Open Exchange, the One Company, and then we'll go back to where the very beginning where you started. And did you actually realize that you would be like leading a company at this time?
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. So I am the CEO of One, which stands for Open Network Exchange. And One is a next generation technology company that helps companies fulfill marketing and sales and other related services. But really at its core, we're a partnership company. We contribute our mobile first next generation technology to help companies across the globe reimagine their customer loyalty, their customer stickiness, their customer wallet share, and overall satisfaction. And we do that by providing anything from tech-enabled marketing and sales services to customized software solutions to membership programs and loyalty programs. Where we have 6 global contact centers across the US. So if you dial 1-800 blank, you might be hearing one of our agents on the phone. And we provide this service because a lot of clients have really not been able to keep pace with all of the technology changes. And they might have legacy systems. And so they want to have an AI-infused technology-based approach to their customer satisfaction, customer service, customer loyalty, but they can't afford to change their legacy systems or start from scratch and spend tens of millions of dollars on a new system. So what we do is we contribute our technology, we customize it to whatever client needs there is. And then on the other end, our partner will contribute their customers, and we work together to enhance those customers, to bring them better satisfaction, a new loyalty program, sell them more, sell them something that's more customized, sell them something that's very experiential and curated. So we really have the only thing that's in common between client to client is there are partners.
And so I was going to say this for a little bit further on in the interview, but we're just here now. So we'll talk about, this is a startup, as we talked about, with 1,000 employees worldwide. There aren't too many startups that I know of that have 1,000 employees worldwide. That's pretty impressive. And so one of my questions for you was, how did you make the leap from executive vice president of Marriott Vacations Worldwide, which you were more in the role of an entrepreneur, to an entrepreneurial role as a CEO of a company? So I'd really love for you to share how you made that pivot. And this is just only a couple years ago now. So how did that all happen, Lani?
So great. It's one of those things where you've never imagined and you weren't looking, but the opportunity comes across your desk and you say, hey, this is something that's really I'm meant to be for, and the timing is perfect. So I was with Marriott for 23 years, And I have to say, I loved every day of my 23 years. Being in a role that was growth oriented, and being their chief development and product officer, I ran construction and development for them. I imagined new resorts for them. We reimagined our entire product. It was a vacation ownership product, and made it points-based and more flexible. I helped take the company from part of Marriott to a spin-off product, where it's currently its own company on the New York Stock Exchange, VAC. So I had so many careers. I ran rentals, internal procurement, so many different careers with Marriott without leaving the company. And one of the things I loved about that was it gave me a chance to see customers at all ends of the spectrum for us. And the latter part of my career with Marriott was in product development. So really focusing on the customer and how to reach them became something that I became a little bit obsessed with. And so in that journey is where I came across the founders of Open Network Exchange. And they had several successful companies in the hospitality space where they engage customers, help you get the most out of customers, add-on products. And they were working before the pandemic on this great new technology platform that they were telling me about. And then the pandemic hit, and they really got to devote this time to create this AI-infused, mobile-enabled, really tech platform that worked with legacy systems with companies so that it's very module based. So if you need our sales and marketing platform or our loyalty platform or our online marketplace, our experiential platform, or you need to sell travel services, or you want our contact center, you can use the tech platform in modules. And so the next gen of technology, which allowed these kind of more seamless API connections to happen, really changes the face of how people with and companies with legacy systems can evolve. And they can do this in a partnership model. And that's what the founders really capitalized on. And I was fascinated with it. And so as they were growing this company, they kept saying, you need to be a part of it. You need to be a part of it with us. And they know I love to take any problem that we had and kind of turn it upside down. And they're very creative and innovative. And so finally, I just said, you know what, at this point in my career, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to build and grow a company that I wholeheartedly believed in the products and that my values aligned with the founders, and really where they gave me the leeway to create an environment and a global culture that I could be just as proud of as I was every day working for Marriott.
Fantastic. And you know what I love about this, and I think this is something that we need to talk a little bit here about, Lani, is that the skills that you sort of honed at the Marriott and, over the past 20 some years, transferable to the new role as you assume the CEO role in a tech company. I mean, hospitality tech, I mean, there's definitely some differences there, but encouraging women to step in and take that opportunity, because we have all the skills that we actually need. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, taking those leaps of, stretch assignments and opportunities that come across your plate, just like you did, that are fulfilling in other industries.
Absolutely. And as I look back and I think about people who have shaped my career or gave me advice, an early piece of advice I got was take a look at the opportunities that you have that others perceive as lateral moves, because they will wind up being career changers for you later. And when I think back on some of the best moves that I made in my career, it was when I took a step sideways to learn something new. So come out of hospitality school with my undergrad, and I went to work for a consulting company. I grew up in the hospitality industry, so it was in my blood. So I knew I wanted to do something related to it, but I wasn't sure. And so, and then over the years, as I had different clients, Marriott became a client of mine as a consultant, and I just fell in love with them. And I said, you know, this is a company that I could really work for. And so started doing more and more with them, went to work for them. But over the years, when other people stayed in one division and, you know, went from manager to senior manager and that trek forward, I said, I'll take a sidestep and go into rentals, which ultimately led me to running rentals for Marriott Vacation Club and product development. I spent time in there, and marketing and sales. I had grown up in operations, so I had known that area of the business well. My degree early on focused on financial aspects of the business, because my grandfather, who ran hotels his whole life, said every young woman needs to know how to read a hotel P&L. So he taught me very early on that you don't have to live in the numbers end of the business, but you have to understand the numbers of any business that you work with, within, for, start. So it was having your hands in a lot of different areas of businesses or clients that may, for others, may have seemed like it almost stalled my advancement. But once I had that just great baseline of experience in all areas of the hospitality business, it really helped me to become a senior leader within Marriott, because I appreciated not only the division in which I ran, but the problems and opportunities that my counterparts had as well.
So there's that. So there's a couple moving pieces here, as far as I can see too. You could have all the skills in the world, Lani. You can have the transferable, you could know that they're there to access. But I think what we need to talk about is that internal self-worth, like the self-worth and the confidence to actually take those leaps. How important is that? Really, I mean, to really just bite in and take that step comes from a place of confidence.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's lots of studies that have been done about how men and women, how we process things differently. And all studies have generalities, right? So, you know, there's always an exception to every rule. But in general, as young women, you know, we might not have had all the opportunities to take a loss in a sports, throw it away, and, you know, start again, right? And all those things are confidence builders. I was very, very lucky in that I am one of three girls, and both my grandfather, who ran hotels and was in the hospitality business, who also only had girls, and my father, you know, never led us to believe anything more than we could be anything or everything we ever wanted to be. It was up to us. And I think that sometimes as women, we might have that little bit of fear or imposter syndrome, you know, where our male counterparts will be just like, fake it till you make it, right? And so, you know, there's a little bit of believing in ourselves and using the power of our network. You and I talked about a favorite quote of mine, which is from Madeleine Albright. And she says, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help women. And I believe this is the power to us having confidence, because we have this incredible network to activate. We have an incredible support system. And if we use it in those just moments of doubt to help us get through that, you know, I think that the side steps or the new role or the new project, when you break it down, seem very, very doable and actually very exciting.
And you said something really important here is that, and I like to go back to this because most of the times women, okay, so number one, you were raised by supporters. You know, there was a lot of male influence as your mentors, as your superiors, as your, you know, your parents, your family. And they raised all girls. And so nobody really knew. It was like ignorance is bliss almost, right? You don't know
That's
what you
right.
don't know. Right. And I was raised actually the same way. I really didn't have any knowledge that I couldn't do anything, because my parents treated us all the same. Um, And I guess that's kind of like that upbringing that we were, brought up in. But you were raised, or you have around you some incredible support hers that we call, our male allies and our champions. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit from your perspective is, to reach equality, for the longest time, we were putting it all on women to do that work, and like we got here, but we could go there and do so much more if we actually invite half the population to the conversation. So how important is it, Lani, to invite our support hers to the table to champion for women to succeed?
I think it takes a village, right? And we need to activate every piece of our network that we have available, whether it's our support hers or our female networks, whether it's being a mentor or a mentee, because I learn as a protege just as much as I learn being a mentor, right? We learn at both stages. So that I think that it is not necessarily a recipe of one or the other, but we need to activate everything around us to really help uh, push and accelerate our roles forward to the extent we want them to be. There are some people who aspire to be A, B, and C, and some people who are very, very happy in what they're doing. And I think that the answer is being able to do what fits you and not feeling constrained by stereotypes or preconceived notions or unconscious biases, right? And just being the best you that you can be.
So, tell me about some of the support hers that you've had in your world, because we know like the stats is like 97% of CEOs leading Fortune 500 companies are men, and you're in this like 1%, this 3% Lani, where you're leading a company as a CEO. So, did you get there with the female support, or did you have a lot of male champions helping you succeed as well? Let's dive in there a little.
Right. So D, all of the above, I would say. I had early in my career some, like I said, I had great role models with my father and with my grandfather, and I had some early female bosses in my career who were very, very helpful and nurturing. And for part of my career, I was a single mom. And so when that enables you very quickly to understand that you need to activate your entire support system, right? And figure out how to people always say to me, Lani, can you have it all? You are a mom, you are a CEO, you were in a public company, you're in a private company, you're in a startup, and I always say you can absolutely have it all, just not all at once. Right. So at different points of my career, my family came first. At different points of my career came first. And I always communicated with my kids about where I was going to be and what we were going to do. And we always preserved time for each other. But even my kids, and I have two boys, and now that I'm remarried, I'm blessed to also have a daughter. So having, two grown sons and now a grown daughter has given me all these different perspectives as well about how to support them and how to see things through their eyes. But I've been very lucky in that I've had a wonderful combination of female bosses and male bosses who were both very supportive, especially being in for a good part of my career with Marriott. I ran development and construction, which is a very, very typical male dominated area, and no one's expecting me, right? And everyone's like, oh, is that a disadvantage? And you turn it upside down, you make it an advantage. No one's expecting you, right? So you have an opportunity to show something different, to provide something different, to have a different perspective. And I've always tried to treat being the only woman in the room as an advantage, right? Because people aren't expecting you. So now you have the value of the unexpected, of the surprise. But it really has been a combination of great role models in that were both male and female that have helped me in my journey.
So I think that's wonderful that you shine the light on both the male and the female, the diverse perspectives that really do kind of help move us forward in that direction. Now, I'd love your role as a CEO and you as a CEO of a company, like, do you have and the influence that you can make to inspire other women?
So, I spend a good amount of my, I would say, free time, to the extent that we have that, in organizations that help people, right? And one of them is an organization that's called the Castell Project. And we go to colleges and talk to both male and females that are in their junior or senior year and about to graduate. But we show them an all-female panelist group of successful women in the hospitality industry and their journeys, so that that generation can envision themselves in perhaps an atypical role. So you always have an entrepreneurial focused person who has really built their own business, and one who has worked for a Marriott, or a publicly held company, and one that might be in a marketing and sales role, might be someone like me who is in a construction role. We try to focus on STEM related hospitality degrees that people might have had, so that you can see that yourself, that maybe in a slightly different role than you ever imagined, and the journey of how to get there. And we provide mentorship and counseling to young women that are entering the field. And again, I think that this is not just our responsibility, as Madeleine Albright says, but it's really our privilege as women to help the next generation. At hospitality at its core is about helping people feel comfortable in something that, when they're away from home. And I always think of Castell in that way. How do we help women see themselves a little bit differently, inspire them to do something more, to take a risk, and if they're feeling a little bit unsure, to have this network of women to fall back on, who, if you're gonna, reach out to a mentor in the Castell program, they're gonna answer the phone and take the call and help you through a problem. And that alone is just so powerful.
So you're a great mentor. Who are some of those female mentors or women in leadership that you look up to?
So I had a mentor that was early in my career. Her name is Fern Cantor, and she was one of the most powerful influences for me. And she really taught me how to challenge myself, how to push myself, how to be a voice that's heard in a room, how to articulate my viewpoint in a way that was very digestible and succinct, and to find my own voice. And I think that this is such an important piece of advice for young men and women coming into any aspect of their career, which is, people say, oh, I'm not in sales. We're all in sales, right? We all have to sell ourselves. We have to sell our ideas. We have to sell our viewpoints. And so to be able to do that, to take the time to make sure that you can really articulate your viewpoint, do it succinctly, understand who you're talking to. Because if we were in a meeting with folks that didn't speak the same language we did, we would, as women or men, we would get a translator. But sometimes when you're the only woman in the room and you're in a room full of men, you don't realize that you might also be speaking a different language. So to understand those nuances and to know how to speak to your audience to get your point across, I think is powerful. And she's one of my early influences that really taught me that. So, she's the one that comes to mind when you ask.
Well, I hope we're going to be sending this podcast to her so she can hear, because sometimes I think that we as women, we don't know how many people that we've influenced along the way. The
That's right.
ripple is so far reaching. And, that's part of the reason why I created the Woman of Inspiration Awards, is to nominate the women that inspire you. So maybe we should nominate her.
That's right. We should.
So another really important topic is about celebrating the achievements of women. And so, Lani, why is it so important to celebrate the achievements of women?
Well, I think that as women, sometimes we have a variety of different roles, and sometimes we always forget to stop and say way to go to, ourselves and others, because we just, assume that might be what's expected of us. And so I love to take the opportunity to say, way to go, or to say thank you. I think people are always very quick to complain or criticize, right? But not quick to say thank you, way to go, what a difference you made in your life, what a difference you made in my life. And so that's why I love what you're doing, because you're giving women the platform and the voice to say, here's what you did for me as a mentor, or as a boss, or what have you, and to recognize and to celebrate one another, and to give us the permission sometimes to do so.
Yeah. And so as easy as it sounds, Lainey, there's this fear of ego that comes attached with stepping into that spotlight, owning that recognition. And that's also sometimes a barrier that I've chatted with women that are like, you know, what if I put myself in the spotlight? Then, so how can we reframe that for women to own the spotlight and take up space?
Well, I think that getting comfortable in whatever is your spotlight is about being your authentic self. So a lot of times during your career, you think that you have to be, oh, I can't be feminine, or I have to be feminine, I have to be strong. And so when you find your groove and you're just your authentic self, I think that it helps women take that spotlight, because it takes away some of the fear. I think also seeing people like me, right? So that's why what you're doing at Universal Women's Network is so important, because, or what we're doing at Castell and other organizations is important, because I can see, oh, that's a person like me. They had my same background, they had my same challenges, and look what they achieved. I can do that too. And it takes eliminating the fear is a huge part of allowing people, I think, to shine through, and doing that through support networks, through mentorships, through people like me, and visualization, and by authenticity, I think could create a great recipe for that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that more women need to hear that. You're right. By putting leaders like yourself into the spotlight, that's how we share the stories. And I love that you shared that you were a single mother as well, because I was a single mom as well. And, we haven't talked a whole lot about that piece of it, but there's a lot of women that don't have the support networks around them. And so, how do we inspire them to keep going? And you and I know that resilience is a gift, but what else, what other tips can you share with women that might be going through a transition of some kind, to just, step into that power, keep going, and don't give up?
I think that we have to realize that our networks and support systems are what we create, because I've taken jobs with my kids. We've had to move, right? So I haven't, at some point, I've had the luxury of having family around me, which is this instant great support network. But other times I was in a city alone, right? And so you
Mhm.
have to create that network and support network. And I always tried to do it by finding people that had either my exact situation or the opposite situation. So in a neighbor, I remember when my kids were young and I was traveling a good bit. And so I could never be the person who does the after school pickup. So I found someone who could always be that person, but not necessarily do the early morning. So I found someone with the exact opposite need as I had, and created all these partnerships and unique marriages so that I could create my own support system. And I think that's what women have to do. We have to give ourselves permission to do things a little bit differently. Turn it upside down. Find someone who has your opposite problem and complete them, right? And don't be afraid to ask. You can find them in line at the grocery store, or your kids' friends, parents, or you might find them if, I like to do volunteer work, so I found it with other volunteers. Some people find it in, if they have a house of worship or whatever it might be. Not one size fits all, but create your own support network, because it's not going to be created for you.
So you said something really important is you have to ask. So why is it so hard, do you think, for us to ask for help? Did you ever stumble with that, or did you just have no choice?
Well, I think a little bit of both. I mean, I do think that asking for help is perceived sometimes as a bit of weakness. And especially sometimes when we might go back to men and women speaking slightly different languages, right? Women tend to, again, generality, but women tend to have a lot of little red spots in our brains that are processing and multitasking a lot of things. And we haven't been civilized for all that long. Men tend to have one core that they're focusing on. So if we go in and we say, hey, we want to talk about all these things that are going on to our male boss, they might perceive that as us needing help. And we perceive it as processing, right? We're just processing, we're just talking to get to our solution. So I find communication is that key for me to feel comfortable in asking, which is I'm not asking you to solve my problem. I'm just asking you to process with me, right? So that's helping me come to a conclusion. Or if I need a bit of help, I'm not asking for a special exception. I'm going to ask for something and offer something at the same time, so that I don't feel like I'm asking for anything out of the norm, right? So to me, it's communicating what I need and always balancing it so I can feel good about it. So that if I do need to leave at 3 o'clock to go see my son's ABC program, I make sure that I communicate that I'm leaving and that I know my proposal is still due. It will get done after the fact, or I will, come in on Tuesday, a couple hours early and finish that for you. So that, because there's nothing wrong with what we're asking for, nothing wrong with what we're doing. And I try to encourage that in all the associates, which is, that can happen in reverse. A woman might get maternity leave, but a man is also in his way having a baby and wants to spend time with that new child and bond, but yet they're afraid to ask for paternity leave. But we're not afraid to ask for maternity leave. So in that same balanced approach, if we can take something like maternity leave and make it leave for parents, right? We're now opening up platforms to be able to ask for things that are very balanced and very comfortable, right? Because why should it be for just a woman to have that bonding time with their child? So I think it's taking things that not just from a female perspective, but from all of our associate perspectives, and creating this really inclusive environment that makes it comfortable for anyone to ask.
You know what I love, Lani, is the fact that you're now CEO and responsible for leading the changes within the organizations, such as the One Network. And so, what sort of initiatives are you excited about sort of building and growing within your company?
Well, I love to, we're a startup company, we're growing fast, so we always have new people, and we take our opportunity to kind of celebrate and acknowledge when someone breaks a record or has their first, ABC call, or does a really great job with a new client. And then now, as we're getting a little bit bigger, we're having the opportunity to celebrate different cultures around the world and what people are doing in different holidays, and helping in that understanding, and creating. We created a few more flexible floating holidays, because not all holidays are created equal. So if there's X number of days that you're able to have, take the day that's important to you. Perhaps a traditional day off may not be something that you tend to celebrate, and there is something else that you do. So again, instead of making that person have to ask for that special accommodation, why don't we just give people floating and flexible things, like flexible PTO or flexible vacation days, holidays, so that they can pick and choose what's meaningful to them and help them celebrate it. One of the programs that that we've initiated in some of the women organizations that I participate in that I really love is this reverse mentorship. So I love to take a problem and kind of turn it upside down. So mentorship in this organization became stale. So how do we lighten it up a little bit? So instead of I would be a typical mentor and I would get a protege. Instead, we took some of the younger and newer folks in the membership base and had them be mentors. And the typical mentors like myself, we became the proteges. And I learned so much from just turning this upside down because there were things that they shared with me and helped me walk through that and we did this program about 7 years ago. And so they helped me see how they use Instagram and how they may communicate via social media and phenomenons like if I want to go bounce something off someone, I'll get up from my desk, walk down and ask them, but they'll, chat or IM or Slack each other. And so why is that if you're sitting next to somebody, why is that? And they really helped me learn a whole different perspective and heard mine. And so I think anytime that we can turn something upside down and really just appreciate all the differences in one another, we wind up winning, growing, and releasing some of those unconscious biases that people may not even realize that they have.
Beautiful. And so what is the next 5 years for you? Where would you like to be in the next 5 years with the company? What would you like to see?
Oh my gosh, that's
Is
so
that too
exciting.
far away? Is that too far
Well,
away or
well, it's I think that it's always great to have goals, right? But I don't I when I look at some of our goals, I think that we've really grown fast and exceeded them. But if I say, what's the definition of winning in 5 years? It's that we have a global base of associates that appreciate the differences in one another. They celebrate each other's success. We have clients that are part of our family, right? Not just part of our transactions, but really part of our family and our growth. And that's why I love the idea that we're a partnership company in everything that we do, that we've invented some crazy new products that have disrupted the industry and made us think about something completely different. And that if you have a career with one, you can do 10 different things and never leave the company. And if in 5 years I can say we did that, I will feel very, very proud of my role as CEO. Not to mention, probably tripled or quadrupled the bottom line. That's a given, right?
of course, because it's women led.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Lani. And it would not be a Woman of Inspiration podcast without asking you, what is your definition of a woman of inspiration?
Well, for me, it's somebody who, interesting question, is very authentic, right? Has been able to be themselves and embrace themselves. I think it's somebody who has taken ownership for their own success, but also takes the responsibility of helping those that come behind them. I think it's somebody who has taken their own path. At different points of your career, you make choices that are right for you or your family, because we have roles of mothers and wives, of sisters, of daughters, of friends. And so we have priorities, but as long as we do our best and contribute, 100%, to me, those are the most inspiring women. The ones that took a risk for themselves, but took a risk to help somebody else, or took a moment to give a little back and had a role that maybe was a bit atypical, so they inspired someone else. And at the end of the day, they cared about the next generation, and led and inspired people with kindness. I always like to say that being in charge, and being a good CEO is less about being in charge and more about taking care of the people in your charge. And if you can truly accomplish that, you're a woman of inspiration.
Beautiful. Well, Lani, I think you are a woman of inspiration from just speaking to
Likewise,
you today
Monica.
and sharing your words of wisdom. Like, you are a true inspiration, and I am super happy to have had this time. And this will not be the last conversation we're going to have. I think we need to do a few more conversations, and
I would love
I'd
to.
love to become a partner with you. So
I
I look
love that.
forward to our next conversation. Any final words for our listeners or viewers today?
I think just uh, whatever you choose to do it with passion, and you will release that fear. You will be your authentic self, because if you truly love what you're doing every day and you believe in the product or the company, or find something that you can really embrace and have passion for every day, it will make all the difference in your growth and in your leadership and in your authenticity.
Beautiful. And Lainey, how can people get in contact with you, learn more about your journey, and also your work with One Company?
Well, certainly, you can find me on LinkedIn. The great thing with having a crazy name like Lani Kane-Hanan is there's not a lot of us, right? And if you want to find me, my email is lani@onecompany.com. And I always love to hear from you. Thanks to you and magazines that the magazine that you put out, yet you women, that you can even see my story in the latest edition of your magazine.
Well, thank you very much. And we will be shouting that out from the rooftops when this podcast airs. And we really, really would encourage listeners. Like, there's not too many CEOs that give out their personal emails. Like, Lainey, you are really a trailblazer, because what we need to have is more women like you in the spotlight, and women that are willing to share and rise and carry others up. So thank you so much for everything that
My
you do.
pleasure.
And please, if you enjoyed this podcast, for those listeners and viewers, share it widely. Reach out to Lainey, reach out, learn, and actually take that opportunity to say, hey, I heard your podcast, and thank you for doing what you're doing. Because I truly do believe that the leaders, we need to hear the feedback of the ripple that we're making. And sometimes you don't know the impact that you're making in another person's life. So that's really cool, is that ripple effect. So I really want to promote that ripple from happening, and those listeners actually taking you up on emailing you.
Well, thank you,
So
Monica,
hopefully
and
your
thank you for
inbox
what
is
you're
flooded,
doing.
Lainey. Anyways, this has been the Woman of Inspiration podcast. Thank you very much for joining me today, and tune in next time as we interview women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Thanks so much, Lainey.
Thank you. Bye-bye.